Fēnix is Toverland's impressive wing coaster. It opened there in the summer of 2018. It's part of this massive expansion the park did called Avalon. Think of it like a medieval section, almost kind of Lord of the Rings inspired. The ride is located right in the middle of the section. It passes over a water ride, gets real up close to the ground at some points. It is a beautiful ride, super photogenic, and as of right now, it's arguably the signature ride at this park. And I think ever since it opened, people have been debating about whether it is Europe's best wing coaster or not. And so I was excited to give this thing a try, even though I'm not the biggest B&M wing coaster fan. Some of them I find a little boring, but this was not one of those. This was an exciting, intense layout that was totally impressive for me. While some wing coasters can feel kind of forceless, Fēnix was not at all, not in the slightest. This thing pulled some G-forces. According to RCDB, it pulls up to 5 Gs at one point. And I think it's pretty obvious at what point in the ride this comes. It's right after this Immelman, you're banking sharply to the right in this helix where you're right up against the ground. It is such a sharp turn. You absolutely gray out. You don't come out of it until you're already halfway through this inversion. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting in the front or the back, that moment is so intense. It was easily the standout moment of this ride for me. But honestly, each of the elements on Fēnix hit pretty well, even though this is a fairly short ride. Which, you know, straight away, that is a downside of Fēnix. Don't get me wrong, it's good, but I wish there was like 1 or 2 extra moments right after that. But also, in a way, I'm kind of glad that it just ends with a bang. Like, there's no dead space in this. I can think of a couple wing coasters, Gatekeeper, where it just feels like it goes on for too long, and the ending is just very lackluster. And so you almost kind of get off going, it was fine, you know? Fēnix has 2,667 feet of track, and it utilizes every inch of that. So let's walk through this full experience. First, I want to start with the entrance and the queue. Just wow. Toverland knocked it out of the park with this one. You descend down these stairs into this big cavern, some really cool stonework, pieces of art that you're looking at. You'll of course reach a point where everything splits off. You have to go to the left or to the right. It's just really cool down there. It's a really long walk. I mean, it's not like right when you go through the entrance, you just go straight into the station. They've put up quite a big amount of space here to handle those lines. It's also air conditioned, which I appreciated. We went here when it was very hot. This is a really pretty station. I'd say most of my rides on Fēnix took place on the left side, but of course I also made sure to experience on the right. Personally, I didn't have a favorite side. On wing coasters, my preference usually goes towards whatever side goes up on that wing over drop. So in this case, that is the left side. But on Fēnix, the right side is where you get really, really close to the ground, which is a pretty cool sensation. So honestly, be sure to try both. They're different experiences. When you exit Fēnix's station, right before you ascend your lift, they have something that caught me off guard because I did not expect it in the slightest, and that is an animatronic. Directly above you is this like dragon head. He's moving around, breathing smoke out. There's some flashing lights. He's like growling at you. It is so cool, and I loved it. I mean, it was totally unnecessary. The park did not need to do that at all, and no one would have complained, but they took the extra step, put in something that's just a really cool way to start off this experience, and I was here for it. So you start up your lift hill, you're 131 feet in the air. That makes it the tallest ride at Toverland. When you reach your top, you hit a flat section of track and bank to your right. This is really cool. I mean, usually on wing coasters, after the lift hill, you just go straight into the wing over drop. But I liked this little panorama that it gave. I mean, the view of the park is great. Gives you a moment to take things in. And then you slowly rotate upside down into your drop. You're facing the ground, hitting your max speed of 59 miles per hour, passing underneath another section of track, and then first element is an Airtime hill. And unlike some other wing coasters, Gatekeeper, this Airtime hill actually gives some great floater airtime. I was really impressed. I haven't typically been the biggest fan of airtime moments on wing coasters. I've always said I think they should just stick to inversions. But I really liked this part. This was cool. This passes over a body of water that they have for another attraction. It's the Merlin's Quest boat ride. Think of this ride almost as an out and back because it goes over this water section and the Airtime hill does some stuff, and then it goes back over to the original side through a 0G roll. So there's no supports over this section. It just makes for some really pretty photos. So after that hill, you dive underneath the pathway and go into an Immelman. This is officially the ride's second inversion because technically the first drop goes upside down. You twist out of this thing. I talked about the helix of death. Just wow, you know, like prepare yourself for that. It's crazy. I love how quickly you whip into your final inversion. This 0G roll is so good because you're still like collecting yourself as you're going through this moment. So it's really not until you're out of the 0G roll where you realize what just happened. You pass underneath yet another path, banking to the left, and then you go into a fast-paced switch to the right, once again, right up against the ground, and then you bank now back to the left into the brake run. So it's a very unique, interesting finale, not inversion focused at all, just a couple bank turns, but the pacing of this ride is so good. I didn't really care. I was like, you know what? This is sweet. I'm here for it. I loved the uniqueness of this ride. To me, it was way more memorable than the other wing coasters in Europe. I've now had the opportunity of doing all the B&M wing coasters that are currently open in Europe. So not yet the family wing coaster at Legoland, Germany, or the Jumanji one going to Chessington because neither are open yet. But I liked this more than Raptor at Gardaland, Flugder Demonen at Haida Park, and the Swarm at Thorpe Park. And that's not saying that any of those rides were bad. I did think the vests that were on Raptor just absolutely made that experience so uncomfortable, which B&M has absolutely fixed. I mean, we're talking about the first B&M wing coaster here, and Fēnix being one of the newer ones. Yeah, they figured out those kinks, made it work, so I didn't feel like I was getting suffocated on this ride. So for Fēnix's final score, I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, it's definitely short, but each of those elements is punchy, which is something that I can't say for a lot of other wing coasters. And so I think this made this one of the more desirable wing coasters to experience. You know, some of those other ones, you do it maybe like twice and then you move on to your next attraction. Fēnix, I stayed on for several rides in a row. I just enjoyed seat hopping this thing. I was having a blast. So I'm hoping that we see more wing coasters like this in the future as opposed to maybe some of the older ones. So let me know down in the comments below if you've ridden Fēnix at Toverland, if you agree with the points that I've made, if you think there's anything I missed, let me know down below. And stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios. We'll see you next time.